This video will cover creating the angle support. So to create this, we're going to draw, so looking at this, where do we start is the first question. So I look at it that we have a base feature here that's kind of like a angled L component. I will start with that piece. We'll do a symmetrical extrusion to get the width. And then we can add this component here on both sides, as well as the cylinder and this rib here in the middle. So let's go ahead and start our 2D sketch. And again, we're starting on XY plane to be able to create this kind of crooked L piece here. So I'm going to go ahead and use my corner as my origin. And our first measurement is 95. Oops, looks like I'm in inches. Let's make sure we start a new file. Let's make sure it is a metric file. Here we go. All right, so we'll start our 2D sketch, XY plane. Again, I'm going to use my origin for my first line, and I'm creating this 95 millimeter line, this 20 millimeter height. I'm just going to drag it out to the side, type in my 95, put my height in, make sure it's perpendicular at 20. I don't know what this measurement is here, so I'm just going to make a measurement. I also don't know this measurement here. I want to make sure that this one also be 20 and that it's perpendicular to the line I just created. And then we'll go ahead and end at the origin there. The first thing I want to do is make sure that these two are perpendicular, or excuse me, parallel, because we want to make sure that the 20 millimeter is all the way down. So I'm going to use my constraints and just select the two lines to make them parallel. And then it looks like I have a dimension of 95 here. Actually, let's zoom in on that. Yes, a 95. So let's go ahead and put our dimension in for this line here. And it's already aligned. If yours is not, you can always right click and choose aligned from your menu here. So we'll leave it as aligned. And our measurement is 95. That's going to give us our overall height here. Let's zoom back out. There we go. We have an angle here of 120 degrees. Let's go ahead and add that in as well. And then that completes our constraints for this drawing. Whoops. Let's finish our sketch. And again, I'm going to do this symmetrical because if I cut this part in half, it's the same on both sides. So we're going to do our extrusion. Select symmetrical, put our full width in, which looks like a radius of 40. Let's zoom in one more time. Maybe I should not have made that small. Yes, so our overall width is 80 for our part. And then at this point, let's go ahead and work on putting the cylinder in. I'm going to go ahead and use a 2D sketch. And I want to start, you can start your sketch on the top or the bottom. So let's just go ahead and start it on the top. I'm going to rotate it so it stays the same view. Use my circular command, and I want to be at the midpoint and just stretch it out. So when I do that, notice that it's fully constrained. So if I change the width of my first extrusion, the circle will change as well. And I can go ahead and trim up that circle. Okay. And let's go ahead and put the cylinder in here. Again, same center point. One is a diameter of 35. And one is a diameter of, I'm going to say, let's zoom in here again, 55. It's a good thing I looked because I would have guessed 45. Whoops. Go ahead and get that in there. All right, so this is fully constrained, so we'll finish our sketch. We'll use our extrusion option here. I'm going to select my cylinder. I don't want it symmetrical. I want it to actually go down. And I can actually put a measurement in here But then if I change the width of this cylinder won't change. So I can actually go to, I want to choose that bottom plane there, and you can rotate your cube if you need to. I also want that as well for this piece and this piece. So we have a solid surface there. We're going to create another extrusion from our pieces that are left. So I'm going to select both of my cylinder here. And actually, we did not need to choose that because that's going to be a hole, but we're going to assume it goes all the way through since there's not a note, but that's okay. We'll take care of it here in a moment. And our cylinder here, and this time we want our direction to go up and our measurement to be over here 25. Okay. And then again, I'm going to do one more extrusion because I have to select that circle on the inside. And we're going to do a cut, and it's going to be through all. And we have that first cylinder in for us. So select OK. All right, so now let's focus on this top part. So we're going to do a 2D sketch, and we're going to use this plane. Don't offset our plane, but messing around there. There we go. And I see that I have two holes that are 90 millimeters apart. So I'm just going to go ahead and select these, circle, and place my holes. One is 25 for my diameter, and the radius is 25, so 50 for our diameter. And we can go ahead and do the same thing on this side. All right, so now we need to do some adjustments. So we'll first start with our center line should be at 90, so it's going to pull them in, and we want to make sure that it is equal on both sides. So we can go ahead and select our center of our hole here and select our 90° and divide it by 2. So now those will be centered. And then we want the top portion to be aligned with our horizontal piece here. We could do this one of two ways. We could come in here and choose the top piece here and our center of our hole and make that 0. Whoops, I think I went the wrong way. Not sure why it just, oh yeah, I did, sorry. Do it as, I wonder why I didn't do that here. Do it as 25. And then I could come up here with my horizontal constraint and constrain those together like this. Or another option is I could create a tangent here. So now I need to go ahead and I can't just be done with this sketch because I need to be able to trim up what I don't need. So I'm going to go ahead and select my line here and from my quadrant. Remember, we can right click and do point snaps. And we can choose quadrant. And we can come over here, again, point snaps, choose quadrant so that those are locked into place there. So this line can't move because it's selected for that quadrant. And we could go ahead and trim here. But look what's going to happen. So we need to have that vertical line here to connect our two pieces so that we can do our extrusion. Okay. Let's go ahead and, sorry about that, getting a little stuffy here. So I decided to go ahead and remove that line because as I got thinking about it, it's probably a little bit easier way is to project our geometry for this face here. So now we can come in and use our trim because again, this is not an actual line, it's a projected feature, but we can use it as a trimming point here. And also these are now closed surfaces because of that trim or because of that projected line. And this just makes it a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and extrude our part here. And I'm only going to choose that outside feature of our part. And we want to make sure it's the full 20 millimeters. And I'm looking like to me that, oh, I am going to need that line because it actually goes down below, but that's okay. We can actually make that adjustment. So let's hit cancel because we are going to need to have a line at least from a quadrant to this line here. So let's go ahead and go back and edit our sketch. let's just right click. There we go. Let's edit that sketch. So that's a good thing to pay attention to. That was nice that I caught it before I did additional items. So again, I'm going to go ahead and do a quadrant. So it's right on that quadrant here, my line. Let me do that there. That's all right. We'll just connect our line here. And then we can go ahead and trim that little excess. Notice that we do have that endpoint and our line is black so that we know it is fully constrained. And let's select our, there we go. It's automatically selecting. And let's go ahead and trim. There we go. Looks a little bit nicer now. So now let's finish our sketch. So a good point is, you know, I could have stopped the video and not have shown you that mistake, but to understand that, you know, as we're moving through drawings, everybody makes mistakes with what they're doing. So the good thing is that I caught it before it went too far, and that way it was a real quick and easy fix. So just pay attention to what you're doing. Again, this should be 20. There we go. So now we have a nice clean line, and then we'll do our other holes here, and we're cutting, and it's going to go through all. And now we have that finished piece here. So again, we want to make sure that anything that we're doing, we can edit. So let's go double check and make sure I haven't made any mistakes where I cannot edit it. So let's make this 90. Yep, looks good. This extruded out, that extruded out, looks good. All right, so we have a good edit here. Whoops, too far. There we go. So now the last thing that we're going to do is add this rib. So we're going to do, first of all, let's turn on our planes so we can see what we're going to be doing. So this plane here is going to help us create this rib. So we're going to go to rib and see it says this command needs a visible unadaptive sketch. So we need to have a sketch for this to be on. So the first thing that we want to do is go ahead and start our 2D sketch here. And I'm actually going to rotate this a little bit. And we want to do some projected geometry. So if I project this geometry here, see how I have this line and this line here. Let me undo. That is the intersection between this plane and the plane I'm working on. So what I can do here is I can have my line and I can go ahead and create that feature here. So see how I have that feature? Now, the issue we're going to run there is see how that line went all the way through. So if I come back and let's finish my sketch and I do my rib feature and I select my line, let's go ahead and give it a thickness. 16. Projecting that full line that I did before, see how the rib continues in. Now, visually, is it going to make a difference? No, it isn't. Okay, when we make edits, is it going to make a difference? No. Ooh, I'm noticing something here though. See how that did not continue? So I must not quite got what I needed. So let's go ahead and undo and let's fix that anyway. All right. Sorry, I just needed to make a quick correction here. So I have my plane here. Let me go ahead and create my line. And again, we're following this. We're drawing on this plane and we're utilizing the line, the midpoint of this line, because it's actually on this plane, and bring this straight down. And we have our line here. And then the same thing on the other side. We want to create a line here. We're going to create this top rib connecting to our piece here. But here's where we have to be careful. I'm going to have to turn this around and see if I can't get a better line here. There we go. And this has to be an open line here. You don't want a closed surface to create this rib. So now we're going to go to rib and we're going to use the parallel to sketched plane. And when I select it, see how it'll create that curved around the cylinder here. We want to make sure we're extruding both ways and the thickness. Let's go ahead and turn that off. And that's how you create this angle support here that we have and create that rib feature. All right, this ends the video on how to create the angle support.